class. Good morning, students. My voice is audible, and can you see my screen?
Sir.
Good morning, students. Hello. Can you respond? My voice is audible.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay. Yes, students. So last class we have seen what is bytecode, right? So last class we have discussed about what is a bytecode. In today's class, we shall discuss in detail about classes. Okay, in detail about classes. In other words, in today's class, we shall see how to write classes in Java. Okay, how to write classes in Java. Okay. In other words, how to write a class. How to write a class in Java, and that's what you are going to see in today's class, right? Okay, fine. And let me ask a question, students. What is a class? Since you have studied classes with respect to C++, can you define a class? What is a class? Anyone? What's a class? Oh, someone asking question, define class. Define class. And what's your answer? Or what is class? Someone else. What is class? What's your answer, students?
Collection of data members and member functions.
Like a blueprint.
Your voice is not audible, it's breaking.
Collection of
class
data
should-
members and member functions.
Okay, very good. A class is a collection of data members and member function. That's very good. Any other answer?
It is a blueprint.
Okay, it's a blueprint. Blueprint of what?
It consisting of methods, everything.
Okay, fine. Okay, let me do it. Okay, so what is a class? A class is nothing but a class defines a new data type. Okay, a class defines a new data type. Okay, that is one definition. You can do like this, or you can tell a class, a class, a class is a template of an object. Class is a template of an object. These are the two important definitions with respect to class. Okay, a class defines a new data type, or we can tell that a class is a template of an object. Okay, since a class defines a new data type, right? Since a class defines a new data type, and using this data type, what we can do, using this data type, what we can do, using this data type, we can create, objects of the class. Using this new data type, what we can do, we can create object of the class. Okay, is it right, students? So using this new data type, in other words, using a class, what we can do, we can create an object of a class. All right. Now, so now before creating an object of a class, and let us see how to define a class in Java. Okay, so let us see how to define a class in Java. And let me share. 1 second. Okay, let me share the screen, students. Students, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Fine. So now let us discuss how to write, how to define a class in Java. Okay, and we call, as you see that on the right side, okay, we call this everything, call this everything as general form of a class. It's nothing but this is a general form of a class. This general form, general form of a class. General form of a class means generally a class, generally a class looks like this. Generally a class looks like this. That's what they said as this is a general form of a class. In other words, you can tell a syntax of a class. Okay, the general form says that how to write a class. Okay, so now let us discuss how to write a class in Java. Okay, now in order to write a class in Java, it should begin with a keyword called class. Okay, it should begin with a keyword called a class. Okay, class is a keyword. So anything which is keyword must be written as it is. See, as I said in the beginning of my classes, in Java, any keywords must be written in lowercase. In Java, all keywords we should write in lowercase. You should never write in uppercase. All keywords we should write in lowercase. That's very, very important. Okay, so class is a keyword. Since it's a keyword, we should always write class in lowercase. You should never write in uppercase, right? Followed by class name, followed by a class name. A class name can be any name. A class name can be any name, but except keyword. In generally, we call a class name can be an identifier. Okay? Can be an identifier. Identifier is nothing but it can be any name, but except keyword. Okay. Now, as you see that my class begins. My class begins with this opening flower brace. Okay. My class begins with this opening flower brace, and my class ends. My class ends with this closing flower brace. My class ends with this closing flower brace. The most important difference you must notice with respect to C++, you see that with respect to C++, here I'll be putting semicolon. At the end, we used to put semicolon, but that is not true in the case of Java. In the case of Java, we should not put semicolon at the end of the class. Okay. Now, next thing. Now, as you notice that this class is having two important members. This class will have two important members. The first set of members is instance variable. Okay, a class will have two important members. The first set of members is instance variable, and it has a second set of members, and the second set of members are methods. Okay, the second set of methods or the second set of members are methods. Okay, see that a class will have two important members. Okay, the first set of members we call them as instance variables, and the second set of members we're going to call this as methods. Okay, now let us focus on this instance variable. Okay, so let me clear here. Let me clear here. Let me clear this. Let me clear this. Now you can see on my left side notepad, I have declared a variable called int a. I have declared a variable called int a. Okay, now we call this a as a variable. Now same variable which I have declared, what I'll do, I'll be placing inside a class, that is class demo. Let me take a class called demo. Now inside the class called demo, what I've done, inside the class called demo, what I've done, I've declared a variable. Inside the class called demo, what I've done, I've declared a variable. So any variable which you declare inside a class, any variable which you declare inside a class, here I've declared a variable called a, and we call this variable a as instance variable. We call this variable as instance variable. So I repeat, any variable which you declare inside a class, and we call that variable as instance variable, right? So now the question comes, how many instance variable I can declare inside a class? How many instance variable? You see that they said I can declare one instance variable, I can declare two instance variable, not only two, I can declare n instance variable. When I say n, there is no limit. There is no limit, means I can declare n number of instance variable inside the class. See, you see that after 1, 2, they return dot, dot, dot. So dot, dot, dot indicates that I can declare n number of instance variable. 3, 4, 5, 6, like this, it goes on up to n. So like that, inside my class, what I can do, I can declare n number of instance variable. And why we call this as instance variable, that we'll see at the later point of time. So right now, one important thing you need to keep in your mind, any variables which you declare inside a class, any variable which you declare inside a class, and we call that variables as instance variable, right? And let us see the syntax of this instance variable, right? And let me see the syntax. Is there? Yeah. So let us see the syntax of this instance variable. Yeah. What is the syntax? You see that here. It says that it should begin. Instance variable begin with type. The type indicates, what is the type? The type indicates data type. You see that, what is the type? The type indicates data type, followed by instance variable. Instance variable is nothing but it can be any variable. Instance variable means it can be any variable name, but except keyword. The most important thing is with respect to syntax, the type always refers to data type. Okay, in Java we have several data types such as int, float, double, char, bool. All these are data types which are present in Java. Okay, so in this type, it can be of any data type. So right now, with respect to my example, I picked as int. Okay, and probably you can include. Oh, I erased it. Okay, fine. You can include double, double b. I like that. Any data type, it can be of any type, any data type. Okay, I hope you know the data types, right? Yeah. The data types which are studied in C++, the same data types will be present in Java also. But one important data type is there with respect to Java, that is Boolean. Boolean. Boolean is a data type in Java. And what is this Boolean? Let us assume Boolean is a type. Boolean is a type, data type. And after this Boolean, I would declare variable called A. Okay. Now inside this variable, what value I need to store? That's a big question. For example, I would declare a variable called int b. Okay. So inside this variable b, what values I can store? I can store any integer values. That is, any integer means I can store 10, 20, 30, -1, -2, like that. Any integer values I can store, right? Now with respect to Boolean variable, right now A is Boolean variable. A is of type Boolean. If it's of type Boolean, what values I need to store inside this? See, when a variable is of type Boolean, I can store only two values inside this A. And what are the two values? I can store either true. Okay. I can store either true. So Boolean means two. Boolean means two. That is 1 or 0. That is true or false. I can store either true or I can store either false. So these are two values a Boolean variable will hold. Right? Is it right, students? That's what. There's one extra data type which is present in Java and which is not true in the case of C++. Okay. In Java, we have an additional data type, that is Boolean. So this Boolean is going to take two values. What are two values? It can take either false or it can take either true. That's all. These are two values it can take. But it cannot take 10. It cannot take 10. Why it cannot take 10? Because A is of type Boolean. Since A is of type Boolean, it cannot take integer values. What type of values it can take? It can take either true or it can take either false. Is it right, students? And that's what about this data types. Yeah, fine. Okay. And that's what I would like to convey here. So all this block is nothing but it is one block. Okay. So a class consists of instance variable and a class consists of two members. The first member is instance variable and the second member is methods. Okay. Now done it. Okay. That's fine. Now. And the most important thing, students, one more thing. Here you see that here is telling that a class contains instance variables and a class contains methods. It is not mandatory that my class should contain both instance variables and methods. For example, here you see that I've written a class called demo. So right now my class demo is having only instance variable, but there is no methods. You see that there's no methods inside a class. This will be considered as a valid class. This we consider as a valid class. It is not mandatory that my class should have both instance variables and methods. My class can have only instance variable. That is fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong. So this class demo int a is a valid class. You should not tell. So since here methods is missing, since the method is missing, the general form says that you should have both instance variables and methods. Okay, but you should not tell, since the method is missing, this is not a valid class. You should not tell like that. Okay, even though it has only instance variables, still we can consider this as a valid class in Java. Okay, that's fine. Now let me clear this. Okay, fine, students. Now so I've done with this. Okay, I've done with this instance variable, right? Now let me declare a method inside the class. So void test. See the students, yeah. See the students. So this void test is a method. Void test is a method. Where I define this test method, I have defined inside the class called demo. Inside the class called demo, I have declared this a method called void test. Since I have declared this function inside the class called demo, and we call this as a method. Now let us try to compare the syntax of this. Okay, let us try to compare the syntax of this. Here the syntax says that you should begin with type. It should begin with type. And what is type? Just now discussed. A type is nothing but it's a data type. With respect to methods, okay, it's a nothing but it's a return type. With respect to methods, we call this as a return type. A return type can be either void, int, float, or double. Okay, and that's what it says. And next followed by method name. Okay, and what's the method name I picked here? I picked the method name as test. I picked the method name as test. Okay, now inside this, you see that there is a parameter list is there. Inside this, inside the parentheses, there's a parameter list is there. But you see that here, I have not written any parameter list. You see that? See students, this parameter list is optional. It is not mandatory. Okay? Inside a method, this parameter list is optional. Optional means it is not mandatory that we need to include this parameters. Okay. This parameter list is a optional. Optional means if you want to write parameter list, you can write it, or if you want to omit, you can omit it. Okay. So once you do like this, so once you finish, then it begins with a method will begins with flower braces. You see that the method is beginning with flower braces. The method is beginning with flower braces, and what is doing here? And I'm ending with flower braces. Here also you see that I'm ending with flower braces. So between this opening flower brace and closing flower brace, what I've written, we need to write the body of the method. In other words, we need to write a code inside this method. So between this opening flower brace and closing flower brace, what we should write? We need to write a code. Okay. Write it. Is it fine, students? 1 second, students. Yes, is it fine, students? Sorry for disturbance. Yeah, fine. I hope understood this, right? So let me do it. And 1 second, let me erase all the stuff. Erase. Now you see that inside this, I can pass an argument int a. You see that I passed an argument. I passed an argument. How many arguments I have passed? I passed only one argument. And we call this as parameter. Okay. Int a. The int a is nothing but we call this int a as parameter. You see the word called list. You see the word called list. List says that we can pass more than one parameter. There's no constraint that we should pass only one parameter. We can pass more than one parameter. Since we can pass more than one parameter inside the method, and that's why they use the word called list. See, for example, I can do something like this. I can do something int a, comma, int e. You see that? Now, how many parameters I'm passing? This is first parameter. This is second parameter. In other words, I'm trying to pass a list of parameters. I'm trying to pass a list of parameters. I'm trying to pass a list of parameters. Whenever you see the word called list, whenever you see the word called list in syntax or general form, it means that I can pass more than one parameter. Okay. So here I have how many parameters I passed? I have passed 2 parameters. There is no constraint that I should pass only 2 parameters. I can pass more than 2. That is, I can pass 3, 4, 5, like this go on. I can pass n number of parameters, right? So this is how you need to define a method inside a class. Okay. The most important thing is a class contains 2 important members. The first member is instance variables, and the second member is methods. These are the 2. We call these 2, that is 1 and 2. 1 and 2 together we call it as a members of the class. We call together as members of the class. Members of the class. To be more to be more specific, we call the first member as instance variable, and we call second member as methods. Okay. Okay, fine. So let me clear all this drawing. All this stuff. Now, generally, when you see any class, any real world class, okay, when you're writing any real time application, generally a class will have an instance variable. Generally, a class will have instance variable, and it has the methods. Okay, generally a class will have both instance variables and methods. Okay, and what this method will do? This method is going to access this instance variable. Okay. Yeah, that we'll see later about these methods in detail. Okay. Okay, fine, students. And you understood the discussion of these classes? Any questions? The general form, how to define a class. The most important thing is once you define a class, at the end you should not put semicolon. You should not put semicolon. Okay, this is true with respect to C++, but with respect to Java, you should not put semicolon. Have you understood this, students? Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So I hope there's no doubts. Okay, and let me share. Yeah. Fine. Now let me write a class, students. Okay. Now let me write a class. Let me write a class. Let me take a class called box. Let me take a class called box. Okay. And inside this class called box, and let me declare a variable called double width, double height, double. And generally a box will have width, height, and depth. And that's what I've done here. Okay. Generally a class box will have width, height, and double. And the type I've taken as double. The type I've taken as double. Okay. Next, let me write a class. Let me write a class called demo. And inside this class, let me write public static void main string args. Now, what is the name of the class, students? How many classes I have? Here, right now I have 2 classes, right? So here I have a class called box. Here I have a class called box. And inside this class called box, I have 3 instance variables, right? Inside the class called box, I'm having how many instance variables? I'm having 3 instance variables, right? Now these 3 instance variables, I want to access inside my main method, okay? These 3 instance variables where I want to access inside the main method. And where this main method is present? This main method is present inside a class called demo. This main method is present inside a class called demo, right? In other words, I have two classes. Box is first class and demo is second class. Demo is second class and my box is my first class. So inside my demo, inside my class called demo, that is inside the main method, what I want to access these three instance variables, that is width, height, and depth. Now the question is how I can access these three instance variable inside my class called demo, that is inside my main method. How I can do it? So in order to access these three instance variables which is present inside the class called box, what I should do, inside this main method, I need to create an object of a class called box. Inside this main method, what I should do, I need to create an object of a class, and I need to create an object of a class called box. Now the question is how to create an object of a class called box, and that's what we're going to see right now. This is very, very important, students. You should understand how to create an object of a class in Java. Okay, so let us focus on this. Now, in order to access the members of a class called box, what I should do inside the main method, I need to create an object of a class called box. Now, in order to create an object of a class in Java, I should begin with a keyword called new. In other words, I need to use a keyword called new in order to create an object of a class in Java. New followed by the class name. Okay, new followed by the class name. So once I do this statement, that is new box, so automatically what's going to happen, an object will be created. An object will be created. And what an object contains? An object contains what an object contains? An object contains instance variable, so it contains width. It contains width. It contains width. It contains height. Contains height. And it contains depth. Right, student? The statement new box. The statement new box creates the corresponding object, and we call this as an object. We call this as an object. We call this as an object. Object of which class? It is an object of a class called box. The most important thing, students, in Java, whenever you want to create any object, you should begin with a keyword called new, followed by the name of the class, and followed by this parenthesis. And followed by this parenthesis. So once you type this statement, automatically an object is created. Is it fine, students? And next one important thing is, now these students, see, I think in previous classes I have discussed there are two types of memories out there, and one is heap memory. Okay, one is heap memory. Heap memory, I think I have discussed heap memory, and one more is stack memory. One more is stack memory. One more is stack memory. There are two types of memories out there. One is heap memory and one more is stack memory. See, in Java, whenever you try to create any object of a class, okay, the memory allocation for this object, takes place in heap memory. Okay, the memory allocation for this object takes place in heap memory. You see the students, whenever you see the keyword called new, okay, by default, memory allocation always takes place inside your heap memory. Okay, the new keyword, so generally the new keyword allocates memory during runtime. So any memory that is allocated during runtime will be allocated inside your heap memory. So therefore, the memory allocation for object takes place inside your heap memory. It is not inside your stack memory. And what is this stack memory? When you compile a program, if any memory needs to be allocated, that memory is allocated inside your stack memory. Okay, when you run the program during runtime, any memory needs to be allocated, and that memory will be allocated inside your heap memory. So there are two important types of memories there with respect to programming. One is stack memory and one more is heap memory. Okay, so inside the stack memory during compilation time, any memory needs to be allocated, then that memory will be present inside your stack memory. During runtime, any memory needs to be allocated, and that memory allocation takes place inside your heap memory. And so with respect to objects in Java, the memory allocation takes place inside your heap memory. Okay, and that's what it is. Okay, let me. One second, students. Let me clear it. Yeah. No, I've created an object called new box. I've created an object. Now this object I can store. Let me store in a variable called my box. Let me store in a variable called my box. And what is the type of this my box? The type of this my box is nothing but it is your class name, that is box. And you can think something like this in this fashion. Okay. Int a equal to 10. Int a equal to 10. And students, 1 second. Int is again. Okay, fine, students. Yeah. So you can think something like this. So how we can think? You see that new box. Okay, new box you can think with respect to 10. New box you can think with respect to 10. Okay, this 10, what you're trying to do, you're trying to store in a variable called a. Similarly, new box is an object. This object you are trying to store in a variable called my box. Okay, you're trying to store in a variable called my box. Okay, here also 10, you're trying to store in a variable called a. And what's the type of a? The type of a is 10. See, sir, sorry, the type of a is int. Why you've taken int? Because I'm trying to store a integer value called 10. So that's why I've taken type as int. Here also you see that I've taken the type as box. Why I've taken the type as box? Because here I'm trying to store an object called box. I'm trying to store an object called box. So that's why here you're going to take the type as box. To say the truth, actually, no, that I don't know. See, actually, we are not storing the object here. Okay, just for this explanation, I said like this. Okay, I hope you understood why I have taken the type as box. Because I'm trying to store a box. I'm trying to store an object called box inside this variable called my box, and that's why the type of this is box. Okay. Okay. Let me clear this. Let me clear this. This. Here, one important thing you should understand. Okay, I said new box. What is new box? Is an object. New box is an object. And what is my box? My box, I said, is a variable. I said it's a variable. To be more specific, we call this as a reference variable. We call this as a reference. We call this as a reference variable. Okay, what we call this my box as a reference variable. Why we call this my box as reference variable? Because this using this variable called my box. Using this variable called my box, what I can do, I can refer to this object. Okay. I repeat, using the variable called my box, what I can do, I can refer to this object. So that's why we call this as a reference variable. Generally, people think that my box is an object. No, my box is not an object. My box is a reference variable. And what is an object? New box. New box is an object. New box is an object. My box is a reference variable. Why we call this as reference variable? Because using this variable called my box or using this reference variable called my box, what I can do, I can refer to this object which has been created inside my heap memory. Okay. Any questions, students? Any questions with respect to this object? Any questions? It's very important. Okay, fine. No questions. That's well and good. Okay, let me erase. Okay. So now using this reference variable, what I can do using my box. Okay, and generally while I'm talking, I'll be talking as my box as object. But to say the truth, okay, while discussion, I'll tell my box as an object, but actually my box is not an object. What is my box? My box is a reference variable, which is referring to the object called box. And that's what the diagram says. Okay, and that's what this diagram says. Is a diagram. It's a diagram of an object. It's a diagram of an object. So my box is a reference variable, which is referring to the object which is present inside my heap memory. Okay. Okay, fine, students. Now using this object called my box. When I'm talking, I'll be talking as my box as an object. Okay, don't try to get confused. Okay, so my box. So using this object called my box, what I can do, I can access this instance variable which is present inside the class called box. That is my box dot width equal to 10. Okay, my box dot height equal to 20. Next, my box dot depth equal to 5. Is it right, students? Is it right, students? Now, how to access the members of a class, students? So in order to access the members of a class, it can be any class. So right now, I want to access the members of a class called box. In order to access the members of a class called box, step 1, what I should do? Step 1, I need to create an object of a class. So once you create an object of a class, then using this object followed by this dot operator. We call this as dot operator. Okay, using this object followed by dot operator, what we can do, we can access the members of a class. And that's what is your second step. Step 1 is creating an object of a class, and step 2 is using this object followed by this dot operator. What I can do, I can access the members of a class. So here you see that I have access width, height, and depth. All these 3 members I have accessed successfully, right? So now let me try to compute the volume of a box. In order to compute the volume of a box, VOL equal to how to compute one. So assign the values, right? So width into height into height into depth into right. So once I compute the volume of a box, what I should do, students? Now I need to print the volume. How to print the volume? In order to print the volume, I'll write system dot out dot print ln. I need to print volume of the box equal to VO. Let me eraser. Yeah. Yes, students. Now, what's the output of this program? Can you guess the output of this program? What's the output of this program? I written my box dot width. What's the value of my box dot width? That is 10. It will be 10. 10. Next, I written my box dot height. What's the height value? That is 20. 20. Next, I written my box dot depth. And what's the value? It is 5. It is 5. So I'm doing 10 into 20 into 5. That is 200. 5 to 10. And it will be 5 to 10 and 1, 2. It will be 1000. Okay. So what's the value of volume? So the entire result 1000, where I'm trying to do? I'm trying to store in VOL. You see the students, here I have declared a variable called VOL. And what's the type of VOL? What's the type? So what's the type of width? The type of width is double. And what's the type of height? It is double. And what's the type of depth? It is double. So what I'm trying to double into double into double. And result also will be double. So therefore, what I should do, okay, what I should do, I need to declare a variable. I need to declare a variable called double VOL. Is that right, students? Let me clear this. Let me erase this. Let me erase this. Okay. Students. One second. Yeah, fine. Is it right, students? What I've done? Is it right? So why you've taken here volume of double, right? Because this is double, this is double, this is double. Result also will be double. So that's why I've taken VOL as double. Okay. Now, what's the output of this program, students? Can anyone tell the output of this program?